The midday edition of the news broadcasted to you live from the economic capital, Douala. Here are the headlines for this midday edition. Authorities of the St. Joseph College Sase in the southwest region have stated that no human casualties were recorded in the fire incident at the structure yesterday, January 6, 2021, which began at about 9:30 a.m. Dialysis machine promised by the Minister of Public Health, Dr. Malachi Manauda, to patients with kidney failure in the northwest region have finally arrived at the Regional Hemodialysis Center in Bamenda yesterday, January 6, 2021. Nigeria expects to get its first batch of COVID-19 vaccine by the end of this month as part of its plan to inoculate 40% of the population this year and a further 30% next year. Stay tuned for the details in this edition. Good afternoon and welcome back. The principal of St. Joseph College, Sase, Reverend Father Armstrong D., in a release after a tragic fire incident that left serious material damage, noted that the flames, which started at one of the school dormitories, St. Martin's, had no human damages as all students and teachers were in classrooms. According to the release, Father Armstrong noted that everything is under control as the students have been transferred to other dormitories. Even though most parents after the incident were taken by fear, the principal calls on parents to remain calm. With most critics blaming separatist fighters, the school authorities blame an electrical fault. This incident is noted to come barely a week after school resumption for the second semester after the festive break. Dialysis machine promised by the Minister of Public Health, Dr. Manauda Malachi, to patients with kidney failure in the northwest region of the country have finally arrived at the Regional Hemodialysis Center in the Bamenda chief town of the northwest region. The machines arrived Wednesday, January 6. Meanwhile, on Monday, January 4, Minister Malachi Manauda promised the center will be receiving the machines latest Tuesday, following the announcement of a temporary closure. This closure was announced by the director of the Bamenda Regional Hospital, Dr. Denis Same, over acute breakdown of the machines. The latter had told patients to go to other general and regional hospitals in the country pending a lasting solution to the problem of machines at the Bamenda Center. On the same day, the Northwest Regional Delegate of Public Health, that Dr. Kingsley Cheso, issued another release contradicting the director of the hospital, stressing the center has not yet been closed. Rather, the hemodialysis machines, which have also been serving patients for more than 8 years now, are progressively being replaced by the Minister of Public Health, Dr. Manauda Malachi, and the new machines shall go operational in the days ahead, the regional delegate of Public Health said. This was backed by Public Health Minister in a tweet announcing that the center will receive 8 new machines and generators the next morning and tests will be carried out at once. Though it comes a day after it was expected, it is a big relief to patients with kidney failure in the restive and northwest region of the country. Serious incidents punctuated on Wednesday the vote of the American Congress confirming the victory of Joe Biden in the American presidential election. Police were unable to stop pro-Trump activists from invading the Washington Capitol. Images of insurgency have of course been around the world, with the toll stated as heavy, as reported by Sandrine Dubé in this report.
Insurrection Day this Wednesday in Washington. Pro-Donald Trump activists took to Capitol Hill, which houses the American Parliament, as the latter validated Joe Biden's victory in the presidential election. Thousands of protesters gathered in Washington, galvanized by a speech by the outgoing president hours before the outburst. The police were literally overwhelmed and could not prevent violence even within this high place of American democracy. Clashes between demonstrators and police officers, which led to a very heavy toll and still partial, with 4 deaths and 52 arrests, including 26 having taken place inside the capital, said Robert Conti, the police chief of Washington. 2 homemade bombs were discovered by police at the headquarters of the Republican National Committee and the Democratic National Committee, Conti said. Calm gradually returned to Washington in the evening. The police regained control of the capital and placed the American capital under curfew for the whole night. Parliamentarians were able to continue their work, confirmed Joe Biden's victory in the election before this inauguration on January 20. Certification finally took place officially around 3:30 a.m. on Thursday, that is 9:30 a.m. As required by the Constitution of the United States, it was Vice President Mike Pence himself who certified the results of the vote.
Nigerians expect to get its first batch of COVID-19 vaccine by the end of this month as part of it to inoculate 40% of the population this year and of course 30% next year. The first batch would contain 100,000 doses of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine obtained through the global vaccine sharing scheme known as COVAX. Nigeria will first inoculate frontline health workers, first respondents, national leaders, schools vulnerable to coronavirus, and the elderly, as the country hopes to get 42 million vaccines to cover 1/5 of its population through the schemes. The World Health Organization set up the COVAX scheme to help poorer countries obtain COVID-19 vaccines. Nigeria has so far recorded close to 100,000 cases. More than 1,200 new cases were recorded on Monday, its highest ever. At least 21 people have been killed in a village in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo on Tuesday in an area that usually sees Islamic rebel attacks. This was according to local authorities. The militants launched the attack late on Monday and killed residents in the Mwenda village with, of course, machetes and guns. According to a source from the United Nations mission in the Democratic Republic of Congo, the enemy would have come towards the Kebembwe River. The provisional toll shows 21 civilians were killed in a savage way in Mwenda. Blames have been laid on the Allied Democratic Forces, ADF, a Ugandan Islamic rebel group. The armed group is the deadliest among dozens still active in the Kivu region and the southern Ituri. Since the end of November, ADF has attacked and have been moving from the far north, that's Uchimwabeni, to the southeastern part in the Wenzori region. The World Bank predicts extreme poverty and depressed economies in Africa due to the coronavirus pandemic and has called for rapid COVID-19 action, including a further vaccination process to limit the damage to global growth in 2021. Listen to these details in this report.
A nurse from Lansing Nectar Hospital waits for the next patient to perform a COVID-19 coronavirus test in Richmond, Johannesburg on December 18, 2020. The World Bank has called for rapid COVID-19 action, including a faster vaccination process to limit the damage to global growth in 2020. In its Global Economic Prospects report, the World Bank forecast the global economy would expand 4% in 2021 after shrinking 4.3% in 2020. 2020's global economic activity was not as drastic as expected due to a shallower contractions in many countries. The impact on emerging markets and developing economies has been more severe. The collapse in global economic activity in 2020 due to the onset of the pandemic is estimated to have been slightly less severe than previously projected, mainly due to shallower contractions in advanced economies overall and a more robust recovery in China, the forecast states. The report said that in sub-Saharan Africa, activities shrank an estimated 3.7% last year. South Africa and Nigeria, the two largest economies in the region, saw output fall sharply in 2020 and agriculture growth slowly. Both countries also saw a dramatic drop in per capita income, which has pushed tens of millions more people into extreme poverty. The decline in per capita income is expected to set average living standards back by a decade or more in a quarter of sub-Saharan African economies. Financial fragilities in many of these countries, as growth shock impacts vulnerable household and business balance sheets, will also need to be addressed, said Vice President and World Bank Group Chief Economist Carmen Rehad. It is said in a press statement that the pandemic has caused a heavy toll of deaths and illnesses, plunged millions into poverty, and may depress economic activity and incomes for a prolonged period. Growth in sub-Saharan Africa is expected to resume at a moderate average pace of 2% in 2021, which is essentially zero in per capita terms and will be below previous projections, while the recovery in private consumption and investment is forecast to be slower than previously envisioned. Export growth is expected to accelerate gradually, in line with the rebound in activity among major trading partners, the report said. The resumption in activity in more advanced and emerging economies and key trading partners of the region, that is Europe, China and USA, is chiefly underpinned by positive news on vaccine development and rollout as well as new rounds of fiscal stimulus. While the bank said the near-term outlook remains highly uncertain, it is said pandemic control and a speedier vaccination process could accelerate global growth in nearly 5%. Policymakers must put in place comprehensive reforms to improve the fundamental drivers of equitable and sustainable economic growth, the World Bank said, adding the need to gradually shift from income support to growth-enhancing policies, but the World Bank said in the longer term emerging and developing economies need to improve digital infrastructure, climate resilience, health services and business and governance practices to handle the economic fallout and mitigate poverty caused by the pandemic. The challenge will reduce public spending and limit debt.
Thank you, Sandrine Dumbe, for that report. And that brings us to the end of the midday edition of the English Newscast. We leave you in the company of Le Journal de 13h. Stay tuned and we'll see you at exactly midday tomorrow. Have a blessed day.